So many people want a fast and fun car, and usually that means something smallish with a lot of power. As we get older though, our priorities just always change. Some people want something safer than their old 2,400-pound death trap, and others need room for their kids, but it can be hard giving up a car for stuff like that. Well, there are options for a fun family car besides rebuilding a minivan or constantly redlining whatever you buy for half the thrill you used to get. So today we're going over 7 of the fastest 0 to 60 American SUVs that are out on the road. Let's get into it. I realize a few people might remember the quickest non-sporty 0 to 60 video I did a while ago, which included SUVs and trucks. That was originally supposed to be SUVs, but it ended up half being trucks, and people still asked for an SUV video after, so here it is. If you noticed I miss any besides the EVs, which I thought would have been a little too obvious for the list, or you have any questions, please toss them in the comments or message me on Instagram. Also, let me know what you guys want to see videos on, whether it's interior stuff, mod stuff, more car lists, car guy lists, or a video about the fastest American EVs, even though that's usually not the type of thing I do. Also, let me know about that. And lastly, check out Liberty Drive's merch if you haven't already, and enjoy the video. These are ranked from slowest to quickest, and first off, we have the Lincoln Aviator all-wheel drive. Before I say anything about the car itself, a lot of you might have heard Lincoln and been like,
hold up, wait a minute, something ain't right.
But actually, as tested by Motor Trend, these SUVs go from 0 to 60 in 5.4 seconds and have just under 500 horsepower and 630 pound-feet of torque, which ain't too shabby at all. These ones are kind of cheaters though, because they have a hybrid setup, and they're the only car I had on the list with that. The twin-turbo 3-liter V6 makes around 400 horsepower, and the electric motors bump it up the rest of the way. The downside, which admittedly is similar to the rest of the cars here, is that these are on the expensive side, mostly sitting between 53 and 65K right now for pre-owned with low miles. Big SUVs with all their extra features and material are generally more expensive on their own, but when you factor in higher performance engines and, for the Aviator, a hybrid system, the price is only going to go higher. Next up though is another Lincoln, and awkwardly it's the significantly heavier Navigator.
I said, hold up, something ain't right.
These Navigators weigh between 5,600 and 5,900 pounds, but they also come with a twin-turbo V6 making 440 or 450 horsepower. These are actually the second heaviest car on the list, but they still managed to hit 60 miles an hour in just 5.2 seconds as tested by Car and Driver. When they first tested one of these, they got a 0 to 60 time of 5.4 seconds, but after a few years and more Navigator reviews, the time got knocked down to a 5.2. The prices on these vary widely depending on the trim level, mileage, and year, but they seem to generally be between $65,000 and $95,000, which is definitely up there. Continuing on with the third and final Ford for the list, we've got the Explorer ST. These get 400 horsepower and 415 pound-feet of torque from the same twin-turbo 3-liter engine as the Aviator, but they weigh significantly less at only 4,700 pounds. As tested by Car and Driver, these go 0 to 60 in just 5.2 seconds, which is pretty damn good for an SUV. I feel like the ST was a pretty cool thing for Ford to do, because otherwise their only part in the fast big car competition is the Raptor, and one other new car coming soon that I'll talk about a little later. The darker touches on the STs make them look a little meaner than the normal Explorers, even though I think they should have done a little more cosmetically, but if I was spending significantly more money looking for a fast, non-electric SUV, I'd probably want it to sound good as well. I get that a twin-turbo V6 in this would probably be a good medium to have better speed, but also keep it from being too much like a brute, and it would add weight, but just in my opinion, if they wanted an Explorer to compete better with the other faster SUVs, they should have gone a little more extreme with it. You could also argue that maybe they'd want a faster SUV but didn't care about competing with other brands' SUVs, but I'd say putting the ST name on this kind of calls for some competition. The only other things more serious than that they could have put on it are like the RS or GT badges. For the first Dodge SUV, there's the Jeep Grand Cherokee 392 and Dodge Durango 392. These are heavier than the Explorer STs, sitting between 51 and almost 5,400 pounds, but they're around the same price, and they've got a bigger engine. And we all know more bigger engine means more better sound and more faster, right?
Hell yeah, brother.
The big V8s in these make between 465 and 470 horsepower depending on the year, and get from 0 to 60 between 4.4 and 4.6 seconds. Some websites say the early Grand Cherokees, like the ones from 2012 and 13, took like 5.2 seconds to get to 60, but most say that it's a mid 4-second mark. The Jeep trim levels are also referred to as SRT8s, and the Durangos are also called SRT trims, but they both have that 392 engine. The Cherokees go back to 2012, and I really like how those look, and the newer ones are even better. The Durangos go back to 2018, and although I think these Durangos look good, I like the front end of the Grand Cherokees a lot more. I may be kind of alone on that, but let me know what you guys think between the two. The third to fastest car for today, believe it or not, is also the heaviest one by a decent amount. Weighing in at just under 6,300 pounds is the Cadillac Escalade ESV that has a 0 to 60 time of 4.5 seconds.
Oh, okay, goddamn.
Knowing only that, you might assume that they put some big gas-guzzling over-the-top for a family car engine in it, right? Well, that's exactly what they did, and it's pretty cool. The ESV is powered by the supercharged 6.2-liter LT4 engine from the C7 Z06, CT5V Blackwing, and the 3rd-gen CTS-V. But in this, it's making 682 horsepower and 653 pound-feet of torque. The steering for this is obviously not all that great with the weight behind it, which is unfortunate, but I think this is awesome to have in competition with the other cars here. I feel like GM adds little touches here and there to their other SUVs sometimes to make them seem more exciting and intense, but I'd say they should have opened up with this type of thing years ago. If I'm completely honest, I think they should have done a little more with the looks to encourage people to get into the mood for something like this, but it's not a bad looking car. Although there's got to be less people looking for something like this, it must be the perfect thing for people who have an important business dinner reservation at 7 and a quarter-mile reservation at 9. Second to last today is another newer one, and it's the Jeep Wrangler Rubicon 392. This has a 4-second 0 to 60 time as tested by Car and Driver, but Jeep was even saying before that it's a 4.5. This obviously has the 6.4-liter 392 Hemi V8 I mentioned for the Grand Cherokee and Durango, but this one's on the wimpier side for the newer cars with a very small 470 horsepower. Even with that though, the faster time makes a lot of sense because they weigh less than one way or another, this thing uses an 8-speed automatic and a 4-wheel drive setup to hit that 4 to 4.5 second time, and I think the Gladiator hood was a really great touch. The crazy thing to me about these though was the price, even knowing how much more expensive Jeeps always are than I expect. Pre-owned on Car Gurus, almost all the Wrangler 392s I was seeing were between $87,000 and $95,000, which is absurd when you think about the fact that awesome looking hefty 4-door and 2-door muscle cars with the same engine get listed for low to mid 40s. I get that the market's still up. Like I said, Jeeps are usually more expensive, and these do seem pretty special to me, but I still just think that's insane. I probably would have guessed like $70K for a new one, but I was never a huge Jeep binge shopper, so I've got a more limited experience with their prices than muscle and sports cars. The final and fastest American SUV is the one everybody's probably been waiting for, and it's the Jeep Grand Cherokee Trackhawk and Durango Hellcat, both hitting 60 miles an hour in a wild 3.4 seconds. The Trackhawk pump out 707 horsepower and 645 pound-feet of torque, while the Durangos make 710 horses and 640 pound-feet of torque. Obviously, that's not actually a noticeable difference between the two, and the case is pretty much the same when comparing prices. Turns out barely anyone's going to be owning one of these who can't just afford to get a family car along with their dream car, because these cars pre-owned generally sit between $90,000 and $110,000. Besides that pretty big negative, which would be hard to get around, I think these knock down all the pins. They look badass, sound incredible with that Hellcat engine, have great interiors for my mediocre standards, and they're just cool cars. Same as with the 392s, I'd definitely take a Trackhawk over a Durango Hellcat, but either one's obviously sweet. Honorable mentions for the list are the Bronco Raptor coming soon with a 5.5 second 0 to 60 time from Motor Trend, and the GMC Typhoon with a tested 0 to 60 time of just 5.3 seconds. These early 90s cars made only 280 horsepower and 350 pound-feet of torque from a 4.3-liter V6 engine, but they also weigh just 3,800 pounds. I didn't officially include them because only about 4,700 were ever made, and their time's so close to the Aviator that I mentioned at the beginning that I figured it was just worth a quick mention. Please let me know if I missed any that you might know of, which of these you'd take, and feel free to ask me any questions in the comments or over Instagram. Also, if there's a specific video you'd want me to make, I'm always happy to hear them so I can show you guys the type of stuff you'd want to see. A lot of people told me on an older video that they'd want to see a spicy taco review, but actually, if you think you have a good or bad idea, I'm just happy to hear it. Make sure to let me know. As always, thank you all so much for watching. I appreciate every single one of you guys and all the support lately. I'll see you all in the next one. Have a great day.